Greetings, Rotarians. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Livermore. Glad you can all join us here today, here in person at the Robert Livermore Community Center. And all of you folks out there at Zoom, thanks for joining us. Peter Paulson, would you be willing to lead us in the pledge today? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. So I forgot just a couple of quick housekeeping things. All of you good people out there on Zoom joining us. Again, if you are not speaking, if you could please mute yourself. And if you are speaking, please unmute yourself. For those of us here at Robert Livermore, I see LARPD has put a nice reminder out there that when we are inside, we are required to wear masks. Unless you're eating, I think that is current Alameda County Health Code thing. We're trying to stay on top of that. So thank you all for that. Songsters live in the house. What do you got for us today?
We didn't try anything, actually. You can take that up, stay 6 feet away from me. Okay? All right. So, we could have done like Christmas songs, so like happy, go, reindeer and all that kind of stuff. And I said, no, there's too much stuff going on in the world right now that I started to think about songs that meant something to me. And so just real quickly, my father was the manager of Union Square Garage in San Francisco and worked in the theater district at all these different outdoor garages or outdoor parking lots. And I would work late at night. I was a teamster and I'd work from 4 to midnight at the theater crowd. And back then there were a lot of people sleeping in cars, people sleeping in the street. And it didn't make a difference with the time of year it was. They were all the same. And they helped me a lot because I was like sequestered in a little booth. I couldn't go anywhere. So I depended on them to go get me lunch and get something wholesome to drink. Not always, but we would have a reciprocal relationship. And but they called them hobos back then. And so this is a song by Bob Dylan. And my son's name's Dylan, and you probably don't know the lyrics because it's on a bootleg album anyway. Okay. As I was out walking on the corner one day, I spied an old hobo in the doorway he lay. His face was all brown by the cold sidewalk floor. And I guess he'd been there for a whole night or more. Only a hobo, but one more is gone, leaving nobody to carry him home. Leaving nobody to carry him home. Only a hobo, but one more is gone. A blanket, a newspaper covered his head. As the step was his pillow, the street was his bed. I could tell by his face the hard road he'd come. And a fistful of coins showed the money he bummed. Only a hobo, but one more is gone, leaving nobody to sing his sad song. Leaving nobody to carry him home. Only a hobo, but one more is gone. Doesn't take much of a man to see his whole life go down. To look up in the world from a hole in the ground. Who wait for your future like a horse that's gone lame. lie in the gutter and die with no name. Only a hobo, but one more is gone, leaving nobody to sing his sad song. Leaving nobody to carry him home. Only a hobo, but one more is gone.
That is friggin' awesome, right? Live music. That's excellent. Thank you, guys. Dennis, you have some thoughts for us today.
Hello, you could hear me, yes? Yes, yes. Let's see, just before Thanksgiving holiday, I got a phone call from a boyhood friend of mine who lives down in Texas. He's been down there for about 45 years or so, but we grew up in New Hampshire. I've known him since the 4th grade. We played sports together. We were in a rock and roll band in high school together. And as we were catching up on the phone, he kind of floored me with a y'all. I said, y'all? What is a New Hampshire boy doing with a y'all? And so I thought about it for a while, and I thought, well, you know, I probably ought to have a thought for the day on y'all. So this is all about y'all. Now, what's a New Hampshire boy lecturing about y'all? Well, I did spend a year in Texas, and I've got family in Georgia and South Carolina and Tennessee. So I've had to negotiate y'all. So I thought I'd help you learn to negotiate y'all. So it starts with the foundation of all, which means everybody, right? We all know this. It's all. But then if you go into a restaurant down south with your family, the hostess will greet you with, how y'all doing? Very pleasant, very nice. And then another party comes in behind you and she asks, are you alls together? With an S on it. So all is now plural, okay? But, you know, we kind of go with it. And then another party or two come in right behind us. And she asks, how all y'all doing? Now the S is dropped, but apparently all y'all refers to more than two in plural. All right, but we can go with it, all right? And then we're seated at the table and over comes the waitress and she asks, what's y'all's preference for drinks? Now, this is not to be confused with the plural y'alls. This is the possessive y'all. So it's apostrophe S. You know, but we can get there. And then she goes and talks to the table next to us. And then she wants to confirm, is y'all's preference for drinks all coffee? Now, this is S apostrophe S. And they do use the double S. You know, and now your head's feeling a little dizzy and you got this taste of, you know, a little vomit in the back of your mouth. But then she announces to the whole room, well, I guess all y'all's drinks is coffee then. Now she's goofing with all you Yankees. There is no all y'all's. But I thought this is, at least now you can navigate through y'all's when you go down south again. So thank you all very much.
Always enlightening here at the Rotary Club of Livermore. Thank you. I'd been so confused by all that, Dennis. Thank you. So before I jump into this part, though, Dennis, I think you had some good news you wanted to share with us. Is that correct?
I recently returned from a trip back east to New Hampshire to go to a wedding and see family and friends and boyhood friends in New Hampshire. And I thought, you know, I really need to be fined for this. And so
we agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm going to join the President's Club, Ken.
Thank you very much,
You
Dennis. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. So it's that part of the meeting. I'd like to acknowledge all the good folks that make this happen out there. Zoom hosting us today, Jeff Youngsma. Thank you very much, Jeff. Tim Berry covering the Spur reporter duties today. Thank you, Mr. Berry. Alan Frank getting Paul McCandless all trained up for AV. Thank you both, gentlemen. David Rounds out there, our Zoom chat monitor, and Pat Coyle holding down that post here too, right? We're trying to figure out communication between Zoom folks and people that are Robert Livermore in person. So we continue to get better at this. And Kathy Coyle holding down Spur publisher duties for us for the vacationing Don Wentz, who I understand went to Kauai this week. Yeah, that sounds like an adventure. We're gonna have to find out how that went when he gets back. I understand they're underwater, so. Okay. So Bob Cowan there too. So we're gonna get adventure reports from them when they get back, so. Oh, wow. So Rotarians exploring the world. Okay, we'll hit them up when they get back from their travels, and hopefully they all get back safe. So now is the opportunity to welcome visiting Rotarians. Any visiting? I don't see any visiting Rotarians here. How about on Zoom? Any Rotarians joining us today via Zoom?
I don't see any.
Okay, David. Any visitors in general out there on Zoom today? Nope. Okay, that's okay. And I know our speaker's in the house, so maybe we're going to introduce him in a few minutes. Does that work for both of you guys? Okay, excellent. So just a few announcements then. Pat Coyle, can you give us an update on the ear, nose, throat project?
Thank you, President Ken. I just wanted to share that just before the meeting, Gowd called me from Mexico. We'll note that Gowd's in Mexico, not Hawaii. But he said we're real close on this. I think he's been in touch with Glenn and that they're planning to close out the campaign on the 12th of December. So anybody who'd still like to donate to this, feel free to step up and do this. I think most of you have heard the story. This is for an amazing mobile van to diagnose infants and youngsters with hearing loss such that they can be treated quickly, learn to hear, be able to hear, and then learn to speak. Because let's face it, if you're in India and you're a deaf mute, you don't know how to speak, you can't hear, you're screwed.
That sounds like that's about right. Yeah. So if there are more generous Rotarians out there that would like to help, again, thank you, Gowd, for offering to match those contributions. Clearly something that Gowd felt very motivated to help out with. So next up, wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. I've heard from several people over the last couple of months, what's going on with the Afghan situation. And since US forces departed Afghanistan, what's happening to those refugees coming to the United States? Well, there's an update actually tonight, a Zoom update kind of sponsored by a couple of Alameda County supervisors in this area. And topics covered will include updates on the Northern California Afghan refugee evacuee resettlement efforts by local resettlement agencies, county agencies, and community-based organizations. Community-based organizations, that's like us, right, Rotary? This meeting will be an opportunity to learn about the needs of the over 100,000 Afghan nationals who escaped their homeland with nothing more than their lives and who are now in need of support. So if that is a group that resonates with you, if you are interested in helping those folks out, if you'd like to participate, you might want to check out that meeting tonight. So heads up on that. Crab feed, I think. Yeah, this is happening. Mike?
I've got sign-up sheets. I have sign-up sheets for different needs just before and during setup, welcoming people, getting them checked in, setting the raffle up, kitchen help, etc. So if you want to just call me at home or email me, and or while I'm here, you can sign up on this. And while I'm up, our 75th dinner and dance night is on the Friday the 25th of February. Have to keep getting the right date. So that will be $100 per for you, and hopefully your spouse or significant other can come too. And any old members that you are in contact with, would you please invite them and they can call me or Sonia or Linda, and we'll get them set up. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that update, Mike.
Yes.
So one more message. Kathy Coyle, are you out there? Can you give us an update on the children's holiday party, Cape, gift bag situation?
Yes, I can.
Excellent.
And I will.
Thank you.
And I will.
All right.
As you know, the party is again it's a modified one once again this year. It's not in person, but the clubs have really worked hard to put together some gift bags and other things for the families, and the gift card for the families, which is really spectacular. So tomorrow, we would like to have some Rotarians come out to the Cape office for a photo op outside. They want to take a photo of Rotarians to show that we actually did this project.
But tomorrow or next week?
I thought it was tomorrow. Oh, if it's next week, I apologize. I thought it was tomorrow. I will confirm.
You might be
that.
right. I could be wrong.
I will confirm that. Do you want to come back to me and I'll confirm it?
Okay.
It might not be tomorrow. I read it tomorrow. So, okay, come back to me and I'll confirm that.
Okay. Okay. Can we come back now? Or? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay. We'll come back to you at the end. So COVID makes everything tough, right? Cape has identified these, I think it's 100 families that all fall below, I don't know how they do this, 80% of the, poverty level. I think the numbers are roughly like $20,000 a year that these households make. Splen's shaking his head no, maybe more than that, I don't know. The federal poverty level. I can
tell you now.
I don't know how these people are making it.
Most of Cape families are at or below the federal poverty guideline, and that's, as it turns out here, most of the families are at 80% of the federal poverty guideline. Means it's about $18,000 that they're making.
It's I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
So you were right. It's not tomorrow. I'm just excited to go get the photo op. It is the 16th, and their offices now are at Almond Avenue School at the back. So if you want to go for the photo op at 10 a.m. on the 16th, you drive into the first parking lot at Almond Avenue School and drive towards the back. And then there'll be signs that show you where Cape is. So their offices are there now. So
excellent.
Anyway, it is not tomorrow. You'll be a week early.
If you're really excited though.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. So, and just another reminder that if you would like to help out with that, the Rotarian Foundation of Livermore has basically said they're going to backstop this event. They're going to make this happen. They're going to get these $100 gift cards for all of these, I'll call them struggling families in the area. If that's a cause that resonates with you, again, you can go to the Rotarian Foundation of Livermore website. There is a donate specifically to this cause restricted fund been set up if that's something that you would like to support. So I think that's it for my announcements. Splen, would you be willing to come up and tee up our program for next week and introduce our speaker today? You can stand right there and do it. So. It's the Livermore High School choir.
Oh, okay, well, that's easy. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Alan. Were you told you can't go on vacation unless he approves it? I mean, I don't think he's going to approve it, but okay. You see before I get to this week's, next week, always enjoyable, always special, always holiday-ish, maybe a better word. It's always great to have the kids, the choir, and Chris Felices, he's been awesome in years past. So, short introduction here. A friend of mine, Ed Lyon, who owns a local business. And, I've had some ideas that we should bring in some local business people. We have some Livermore local businesses, some in the room even today. But it's always good to hear from the local business people, say, why are they in Livermore? Why? Why are they here? Why do they like employing people here? Why do they like doing business here? So without no further introduction needed, it's Ed Lyon who is walking up. Thank you.
All right, before I start, I've got a couple of disclosures to make. One, I was in the emergency room last night for most of the evening with my mother, so I'm a little tired today, so I may not have the snap wit that I normally have, but I'll do my best. Second disclaimer, and much to the horror of my wife and my children, I am a chronic oversharer. So I'll try to walk that line. I'm going to tell you a little story. I'm going to tell you about kind of how we came to Livermore. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what our business does, and then I want to tell you kind of the journey that I took to get the business where it is. And then, certainly we'll have some questions maybe. So let me start. We came to Livermore because it's a pretty amazing town. I've been driving through Livermore. I grew up in Pacifica. We've been driving through Livermore since I was like 8 years old, and we would stop at Dairy Queen for lunch, and we'd go to Dom's, and I'd get BBs, and my dad would get ammo, and we'd head up into the mountains and shoot stuff. It's a place where my dad, he kind of fashioned himself like a cowboy. So when we got to Livermore, that's when the tennis shoes came off and the cowboy boots came on, right? And the other thing that, really endears me to Livermore is the fact that it's a really kind of unique intersection of three things: art, science, and agriculture. And it's reflected in this room. I mean, we've got two guys up here singing. I had a great talk with somebody that used to work at the lab. You've got, Splend, who grows grapes. It's a pretty unique community, and we really like it, and that's why we came here. There's also that intersection also kind of bleeds over into one of my other favorite things, and that's food, right? So you've got, for me, the breweries are kind of like the science part of it, right? And the wine is the agricultural part of it, and the food is the art part of it. So it really reflects kind of in what we get to do in Livermore as well. So when we finally decided to buy here, we were living at Tracy at the time. My daughter was playing competitive soccer here in Livermore, and we wanted to get over the hill and into Livermore so that we didn't have to keep driving over the Altamont Pass to go to practices, and because we love Livermore. Our goal was to get within walking distance of either downtown or walking distance of a couple of wineries. And we just last year moved onto the south side, and we're super excited because we can do both. We can walk to Retzlaff or Concannon, and we can also walk downtown. So another thing that I find is very unique to this area. We volunteer for local organizations. I've been involved with Boy Scouts for about 6 years. My son's about to age out, so I probably will not continue with that. I have for the last 5 years coordinated the tree lot that's right down the street here on the corner of Hillcrest and East. If you haven't bought a tree yet, there's still some really nice trees down there. You're welcome to go down and check them out. My wife also volunteers. She did a lot of volunteer work for West Coast Soccer, where my daughter played soccer. A couple more things you should know about me. I've got a 19-year-old daughter and a 17-year-old son, both of whom we adopted at birth. It was an amazing, tearful, heartwarming, and heartbreaking process. Someday, maybe I can come back and tell you a little bit more, because I could talk for hours about that process. So I'll tell you about my business. I'm a CEO and shareholder at Socher Insurance Agency. It was formerly a family business. I'll tell you more about that later. We are currently insure about 2,000 communities in California, Nevada, and Arizona. We've got 34 employees. All we do is insure HOAs and condos. We feel like if you can't look somebody in the eye and say, if you look somebody in the eye and say, we do HOAs and condos, but we also write this and we also write that, then you're not truly an expert. So that's all we write. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with HOAs and condos, but I want to tell you a little bit about kind of how they work, because I lived in one for a long time. I had no idea what I got myself into. So condominium, if you buy a condo, you don't actually buy the condo, you're buying the airspace inside the condo, right? And then you're a shareholder in a corporation that runs and maintains that condominium complex. And a lot of people don't get that distinction, but it's an important one because you want to make sure that you've got a board of directors who manages that association. You want to make sure that they're making good decisions. They're maintaining the buildings. They're putting insurance in place that's correct. They've got vendors that are vetted and are able to work on HOAs and condos. So that's condominium side. We also insure homeowners associations. So that's where you go into a community, you buy a house, and maybe it's got a clubhouse, or maybe a golf course, or a pool. You own that physical house, you insure that physical house. Sorry, I move around a lot. Is that better? I'll try to stay here. Okay. So single family home association, you own the house, but you don't own, but the association as a group owns the roads and the streets and the pool and the clubhouse. So those are the two types of associations that we write. I'm really proud that we've built an organization that's now starting to move into new states. We're excited about that. We've got we're starting to develop a national presence. One of my employees is on a task force that's looking at what happened in Florida and trying to work with the Community Association Institute to figure out how do we legislate through this and what types of legislation should we recommend. So I feel really good that we're starting to become a really big player in that market. So we're about $30 billion in property value that we insure, 2,000 associations in 3 states. So it's not the sexiest business. It's not the greatest story in the world, but I think what's more interesting is kind of how we got it to where it is. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in Pacifica. I think I told you that. I have 3 brothers and sisters. We were a typical middle-class family. My dad was a police officer. My mom was the politically incorrect term housewife at the time. I think now it would be a stay-at-home mom. And we had a defining moment in the family. And I'm going to share it with you. It might be an overshare, I don't know, but I'm going to share it with you because it really kind of was a defining moment for me and helped me put some values into my life that I try to carry into my business and my family, what have you. So my father passed away when I was 15 years old, had a heart attack, and it was a shock, right? My mother didn't work. My dad's pension wasn't great. He hadn't been there very long. So suddenly we were thrown into I was a 15-year-old kid who liked lots of stuff and was probably pretty spoiled, to now, the oldest male in the house with a mom that, had to go out and find work. So 4 key values came out of that process for me. 1, work hard. I got that from my mom. 2, value family, obvious reasons. 3, play hard. Life is short, play hard. And the 4th is get back to the community. The community gave to us and came and helped us, and I think it's important to give back to the community. So those 4 things are important to me, and I've tried to keep those instilled when I go to business and when I raise my family. So I started working when I was 15 years old, bagged groceries in a small Safeway store in Richmond, in the Richmond district of San Francisco. Little did I know that it was going to turn into a 26-year career. So I bagged groceries. I was an assistant manager. I was a checker. I worked all through high school and college. And when I graduated college, I became an industrial engineer and went and worked at the corporate office as an industrial engineer. And I had a bunch of different roles, and it was really cool. It moved me around the country a lot. I got to go lived in Portland, lived in Chicago, lived in Houston. I got exposed to some very smart people at the upper levels of Safeway, and really enjoyed what I was doing. While I was out traveling the world, my mom got remarried. She married Jack, and Jack had a very small family-run, basically family business in Foster City that was an insurance agency that specialized in HOAs and condominiums. And he and I would talk as we got to know each other. I moved back to California. He and I would talk, have a glass of wine, and I would talk about kind of what the corporate world was like. He would talk about what a small family business was like. And he'd give me advice, I'd give him advice. And, he would, at the end of every conversation we had, he said, you should really come join the business. And I would every time politely, say, no, thank you. I've got a good career going at Safeway. So, let's make sure I was. So about 10 years ago at think it was Strizzy's downtown here. Jack and I were having dinner, and he made a real offer to me. He said, I would like you to come and run my business. I think you can take some things that you learned about the corporate world, and I can teach you some things about a family business. I think we can make something special. He says, I'd really like to grow my business. So I took him up on it. I went into the EVP that I reported to the next day, gave my 2 weeks notice, and jumped feet first into a small family business. So there are some things about working in a family business that are amazing. First, you get to work with family. And that's one of my core values. That's important to me. It also, you feel safe. When you're working for a family business, you feel safe. You don't feel like somebody's kind of coming after you, or you're trying to be managed out or what have you. And honestly, clients really like working with family businesses. There are some great things about larger corporations that you don't always have in a family business too. Really clearly defined roles. That's important. A career path. Somebody that you can hire that they know that they've got an opportunity to grow. Compliance with legal stuff. A lot of times that's not in existence, and frankly wasn't really in existence at Socher. And then opportunities for growth. So my goal when I sat down with Jack and we hashed this out was to combine all the good aspects of a family business and all the good aspects of a corporation and create something new, keeping in mind those 4 things: work hard, play hard, value family, and give back. First year was awful. We had family members that we had to let go because they really didn't have a role in the business. We had family members that that were being paid based on who they were, not what they did. And we had to make some adjustments there. We made a ton of mistakes. My brother was in the business, had been in the business for a long time. We promoted him to COO. He and I are now partners in the business. But he and I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of strategic slips. And what was kind of refreshing is if you're at a big corporation like Safeway and you make a mistake, a strategic mistake, it takes a lot to unwind it, and you may not be able to. In a small business, it's like driving around in a speedboat, right? If you make a mistake, you get a do-over basically. You bring everybody back in and said, okay, that was a bad decision. Let's go about it this way. So it was really refreshing to me to be able to make some mistakes, learn from them, and try to make the business better based on that. Pretty quickly, I recognized that what we were selling, insurance, it's a commodity. Anybody can sell it. Anybody with a license can sell it. It's like milk or sugar. That sounds familiar. So I decided, let's look at this more like a retail business and less like a sales organization. In fact, I kind of at that time, I thought, we're really good at selling and we're pretty good at service. And what I wanted to become was a service organization that, that level of service helped perpetuate and bring clients to us and help the sales process. And when we made that flip, it was remarkable. We started growing really well. So my brother is really, really smart about processes. And so we had a process that we put in place for interacting with clients so that a client that works with us knows exactly what the process is going to be, and it's exactly the same no matter what employee they're working with. And it delivers a really high level of service. And what happened is we went from pretty good retention, which is 80%, right? You lose a client once every 5 years. Or you would keep a client for an average of 5 years. That's pretty good. We went to 98% at that point, and we started getting people coming to us for business, and things went really well. We also kind of flipped the traditional model of an insurance agency. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with how it works, but today you have a producer that has a book of business that they manage, and they have a bunch of clients that they work with, and they have to do 2 things. They have to sell new business, and they also have to kind of manage this renewal book. And at some point, it gets so big, they either focus on renewals or they focus on the new business side. They don't really have time to do both. If they focus on the new business side, they start getting non-renewals. If they focus on the renewal side, the book doesn't grow. So we decided to kind of flip that model, and we told our producers, you no longer have a book of business. You don't need to worry about renewals or interaction with the client after you sell. We'll compensate you based on the book that you built, but all we want you to do is go out and sell. And I don't know how many salespeople you guys work with, but salespeople are really, really good at selling, but not really good at servicing. So when we made that flip, that also helped kind of drive some incremental service level. So things were going great. Business was growing. We were super excited. At the time that COVID hit, we were about 4 times the size we were when we were in Foster City in our small business. We had opened offices in Pleasanton, in Pacifica. Our corporate office is now in Pleasanton. We opened offices in Las Vegas, Reno, and Phoenix, and all of them, doing quite well. Most of them virtual offices, like a one-man show, but we were able to show a presence in all of those markets. So things were going great, and then the pandemic hit, and we had to try to figure out how we were going to go to market. And I noticed what was happening with our competitors. They all thought, this is just a 3-week slowdown. We'll just not do anything. We're not going to sell. We're not going to do anything different from a service standpoint. We're just going to sit and wait and see how this plays out. My brother, who I told you is a brilliant operator, when he heard the news kind of out of Wuhan and he started to see things shut down overseas, he said, Ed, they're going to shut us down here. Give me the opportunity to go out and buy laptops for everybody, get everybody trained so that if we have to work from home, we don't miss a beat. And we did. And it came to fruition. We all had to work from home. And I was super stoked and excited that we were able to transition immediately to work from home. The remarkable thing that happened is everybody wanted to stay home. So, we went from 34 employees, maybe 4 of them were working from home consistently, to 4 people working in offices and everybody else working from home. And it's been fantastic. We also decided we weren't just going to sit and wait for things to open back up again and then go back to the way we sold before. We decided we're going to have to learn how to sell differently now. We're going to have to learn how to leverage Zoom. We're going to have to learn how to sell indirectly and not necessarily directly in front of people. And the beauty is now, as things are opening up, our competitors are at a disadvantage because they never learned to do that. So all they can do is sell face to face. And we now have both of those things in our toolbox to grow the business. So I think that kind of concludes what I wanted to share with you guys. It's probably a little bit, I don't know, did I make it 10 minutes? Okay. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
You can't see me. I'm one of the outside people.
Yep. Hi.
Okay. Would you comment, please, on how the California housing and HOA business is doing? I'm thinking in terms specifically over the last year, where 1, there's been a flight of population from California, and 2, inflation galloping thanks to the current administration.
Yeah, I would say in general, it's healthy. What we're seeing is this kind of exodus out of the cities into the, into where we are here, into the suburbs. And then folks in the suburbs are moving out into the valley, and folks in the valley are moving out of state. So we're really not seeing vacancies. We're not seeing increases in rentals, which is typically a sign that things aren't going well for an HOA or a condominium. And we're seeing new development still in California. So we're seeing, growth of new associations and growth of new condo associations.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Fascinating talk. I don't know if they only exist out of San Francisco, but I remember years ago when we were looking for a place for our son, there were a lot of tenant in common setups. Can you comment on them and where they fit into the spectrum, and do you cover them too?
We do. There's a lot of carriers that won't write them because they're not held to the standard of the Davis-Sterling Act, which is the act that it's the legislation that oversees HOAs and condominiums. So they sit kind of outside of that. So a lot of the regulations that are in that don't apply to them. They're typically smaller. You see them a lot that they're like 2 residences that are together, and they decide that they're going to share maintenance because they've got a shared wall or a shared floor and ceiling type deal. So we do write them. They're very difficult to write because they're not regulated as heavily.
You got another question here, Michael? Just a quick question.
Yeah.
When you first moved to this area,
Yeah.
how did you identify your competitors, and how did you evaluate your competitors, and who are your competitors?
So, yeah, that's a great question. So we've got, there are 2 other large brokers like ourselves that specialize in HOA and condominium. They're both down in the Los Angeles area. So we're the only broker, and let me make the distinction between an agent and a broker. An agent represents a carrier. So like a farmer's agent or a State Farm agent, all they have at their disposal is to write farmers, and they're an advocate for the carrier. We're a broker, so we have access to a whole bunch of different carriers, and we're more of an advocate for the client, right? I can go back to a carrier and fight for coverage or fight for better pricing or what have you, where you don't necessarily have that ability as a captive agent. So we're the largest broker that specializes in it. There are a lot of farmers agents that specialize in it. Our biggest competition though right now is the kind of corner farmers guy that doesn't really understand how to write it properly and comes in and doesn't write it correctly, and it's much lower priced. So the board says, I'm going to make a decision based on price. And then, they have a bad loss and they end up coming back to us anyway. So our big competitors here it's a company called LeBar Oxney out of Southern California. They're a broker like we are. And almost every Farmers or State Farm agent that has a shop. When we go into a new territory, we're getting ready to move into the Portland market. So our approach for Portland is going to be this. We're going to go up there. We're going to join the trade associations that are up there, and we're going to go to some trade shows and try to understand who are at those trade shows, because those are the ones that are, really truly competing with us, and try to understand who they are, try to understand what their approach to market is, but really try to understand what their service level is, because that's what we're selling. We're selling against their service level. So we'll talk to community managers there and say, hey, how is Pete Davidson agency doing with your renewals? What are you seeing? What struggles are you having? And try to assess it that way. We like fat and happy agents. We like the guys that are sitting on a big book that don't really want to put the effort into renewing and put the effort into service. We found that in Phoenix when we went into the Phoenix market, and we've been able to gobble up share in Phoenix. So we're hoping to find the same thing when we go to the Portland market.
So you talked about insuring HOAs. So in California or even the other market, the states that you're in, are all new developments, do they have an HOA with them? Or what percentage of neighborhoods have HOAs? Single family home neighborhoods have HOAs.
So in California, there's about 38,000 homeowners associations. Almost everything that's being built new today is an association. Municipalities aren't willing to put money into infrastructure like roads and streets and parks, so they're relying more on the developers to do that. And in order for them to be maintained, they have to create an association to maintain that. So I would say it's very rare now to have building without an association, which is good for us. I like that.
Yeah, my question is, what does your service entail? What exactly do you do?
That's good, another good question. So it's a renewal process is really the kind of what we call our service proposition, and it's kind of it's our secret sauce. But I'll walk you through what we do. So 120 days before expiration, we reach out to the client and we say, is there anything new at the association? Have you got any additional assets? Are there any changes that might have happened? Have you rewritten your CCRs? Those types of things. Then at 60 days, we go out to market, and we go out to everybody that's available to write that, to all of our carriers. That's unique. Most agents will just go to whoever the association's currently insured with and get a renewal quote from them. So we go out and we market it, and we give them multiple options. We say, here are some options. We like this one because the pricing is good, but maybe there's this piece of coverage that's missing. This one, the pricing's a little bit higher, but it's got some enhanced coverage here, and we let them make the decision. The other thing that we do that other agents don't do, and I think it's a common problem throughout the industry, is we reevaluate the replacement cost for the association every year. And by replacement cost, I mean the whole association was to burn down. What would it cost to rebuild it? And that changes. That changes every year. It goes up consistently every year, and it can change, seasonally too. We had last year was a tough year. We had a lot of fire losses, and we had a scarcity of supply and scarcity of labor. So the cost to rebuild was a lot higher. So we would go to a client, recommend you need to increase your value. And it's a process that not a lot of agents go through in our industry, and not a lot of them go through it, I don't think, on the personal lines the personal lines side as well.
Really fascinating. Thank you so much. And hearing about your personal story was really generous and appropriately shared, I thought.
Well, thank you. So I'll tell my wife it was appropriate.
One person's opinion. So one of the big shifts that's happened in the insurance market for California homeowners, any homeowner who is anywhere near a wooded area or wildland interface is having issues securing fire insurance at an affordable rate. So how is that rippling into HOAs and condo agreements for you guys?
It's a big problem. You know, we're seeing associations go from $18,000 in premium. They get assessed to be in a wooded area, and the carriers will say we won't write you. So then we're forced to go to surplus lines. So we're going to like Lloyd's of London and some of the non-admitted, and it could be 10 times the cost. I mean, we had an association that went from about $15,000. The best quote we could get was $180,000. We ended up finding a farmer's agent because farmers was a little bit more lenient on their brush zones. We found a farmer's agent and put it with that farmer's agent, but it's a big problem. I think they're going to have to get creative about how they start to insure some of these larger associations. You've got California Fair Plan, which is available for individual homeowners, and there's a commercial piece of it as well, but it's limited in how much it'll cover. So if you've got a $50 million association, it might only cover $5 million. So there's some creative people out there thinking about how do we fix that problem? Maybe the unit owner has the ability to buy some excess coverage so that if it burns down and they're assessed, they can cover it that way. So there's some creative stuff going on right now on the carrier side, but it's a huge problem. Yes. Yeah. Well, we don't directly, but we'll hook them up with folks that will do that, and then we'll go to the carrier on their behalf and say, listen, I know it's technically in a brush zone, but they've cleared space around, they've hardened the fire risk. Would you reconsider them? And we've been able to make the case successfully to have those insured. But it's tough, man. It's a really, wildfires right now is just such a hard thing to get around. Another thing that's interesting tidbit, Pacifica, where I grew up, is considered a brush zone, even though it's like basically a rainforest. It's foggy there all the time. You couldn't light a fire if you tried, and we're seeing cancellations in those places. So I flew an underwriter out, and we walked a property together to try to convince that underwriter that you got to write this. There's no risk here.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Go buy a Christmas tree.
One more question.
Question from Zoom.
Okay, yes, I have a question. So suppose you have a condo complex. Let's say it has something on the order of 200 units and scattered over maybe 10, 15 buildings, all in a cluster. If the insurance coverage for that cluster, the building insurance, remains the same over an extended period of time, 10, 20 years, would you say that people are minding their P's and Q's?
No, they're not. They should be reviewing that every year. Here's what will happen. I mean, if you have a total loss, God forbid, and most insurance policies have a clause that says if you underinsure, in other words, if you declare that you have $50 million worth of value and you actually have $100 million worth of value, they put in place what's called co-insurance, which says you're now co-insuring the portion that you didn't report accurately. So if there's a $100,000 loss, we're only going to pay you $50,000 because you didn't tell us the whole story. You didn't tell us how much it was really worth. So it's a really big problem. Another kind of proud moment, we had a carrier came to us and said, hey, listen, we recognize that our book is heavily undervalued. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to increase all of your values for 10% over the next 5 years until we feel like the books are right. And we said, well, so where did you get this data that you're undervalued? And they said, we looked across our entire deal. So we were able to actually show that we were fully valued. We were within about 3% rather than the, I think, 60% that they were coming to us. And it made me feel good. We were the only agency in California that travelers did not put that caveat on. Everybody else, they had to raise their values. They gave us a pass because we had it correct the first time.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Zoomers? No? Ed?
Great questions, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you joining us today, sharing your story.
Oh, thank you.
Nice. Oh, here, I got your mask. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. So before we cut out, I got a reminder that today is John Shirley's birthday. John's 97. We know he's not able to join us today, but we thought it'd be fun to sing John happy birthday, and we'll send a recording to him to share with him. So, Michael and Stu, will you lead us? This is great. Oh, well, okay.
Okay. Hi, John, if you're out there. Hey, John. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday to you.
Very cool. Nice. So, yeah, that's the plan, actually. Somebody with much more video editing skills than I will be able to clip that out, or maybe they'll make John watch the whole thing. I don't know, but we'll get that message off to John and let him know that we're all thinking about him. So Ed, I want to thank you again for coming out and joining us, Sharon, always nice to know what's going on in the community, what people are up to. So thank you very much. And one more. Yeah, so next week, again, Livermore High School Choir. That's always a ton of fun, right? Seeing the kids sing and stuff. Splend, do you know? I think we were trying to keep them virtual. When we scheduled them, they weren't eligible to be vaccinated. I don't. Splend's gonna check. We're gonna. Beth thinks she might know the answer.
What I gather from working with the schools in general, the kids are playing together and singing together, but any performance they would do for us, they would do online. But at least it's not 16 or 20 talking heads.
Okay.
They're all out like on the blacktop singing together.
Oh,
sort of
very
thing.
cool. Yeah.
And
nice.
that's just my unofficial,
Okay.
from what I figure is happening.
Sounds like an educated guess. Well, so we'll go with that. So definitely want to tune in. That'll be our last meeting for this calendar year. We're going to be dark the 2 weeks after that. What is that? Right before Christmas and right before New Year's. So definitely want to come join us for this one before we take that break and return in the new year. So I think.
Hey, Ken.
Yeah.
David here.
How's it going, David?
I'm good. If somebody could send me the link for the Afghan meeting tonight at 6, I'll send it out to everybody.
Excellent. I'll forward that off to you. Thank you. So I'm gonna call it. Thank you all for coming today.